You know that feeling when your phone is at 10% but you're just like too lazy to charge it? To your surprise, it lasts a lot longer than you expected, but inevitably your phone dies. And I feel like that just describes what it feels like when you're burning out or going through a slump. There are just times when you feel drained, overwhelmed, and just fucking exhausted. In this video, I wanted to share what I learned about why I go through burnout phases, how to overcome them from personal experiences, and what I learned from therapy. So I'm gonna split this video into 3 parts: your body, your mind, and your environment. So let's start with the body. Someone told me this a long time ago. They said whenever you feel triggered or angry or annoyed, just quickly ask yourself these 3 questions. Did I sleep? Did I eat? And did I exercise? I thought that was so good because whenever I'm feeling really annoyed, chances are it's because I didn't do 1 or 2 of those things. And it's always the most boring things, but it's so foundational, right? Our bodies need fuel. It needs to move and it needs rest. And if we can't get that baseline down, of course we're not going to be at our best selves. The next thing I would say is listening to my body. This is something my therapist has been trying to drill in my brain for the past year. How does your body react in certain situations? Because oftentimes our bodies process things that our minds don't. But she was like, try to be more in the moment, and are there situations or are there people that make your body and your nervous system flare up in a way? So for example, do you feel your heart racing, your shoulders tensing up? That may be a good indicator of how you feel, whether that's afraid, anxious, unsafe, that your mind is just like rationalizing away. And again, take note of that and see if there's any interesting patterns. Is your nervous system flaring up on like the same type of situation, or when you talk to the same exact person? Then you should do something about it. And it may be more difficult for those of us who tend to be like more cerebral and like in our heads, but I'm definitely like a converter. I thought it was some woo-woo thing. It's legit, so think about it. Okay, now let's move on to the mind. Addressing your unmet needs. And it's basically the idea that obviously our childhoods has shaped all of us into who we are today as adults. Therefore, you just have certain needs that need to be met more than other people. But the tricky part is that one of the challenges of asking for what you need is actually knowing what your needs even are. And I think that's when we start to get burnt out, when everything and everyone's needs are coming before your own. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. So it starts like this. It goes from an action to an emotion to identifying your unmet need. So let's start from action. So typically shit just happens, it's out of our control, or maybe there is a specific person that did something. And that action typically elicits a reaction from you, right? So instead of just reacting, I've really learned to like, okay, how do I feel? Instead of just using that emotion to fuel your reaction, try to take it 1 step further and try to identify what is my unmet need here. And there are a lot of them. I'll just put it here on the screen. It's more like, what am I longing and craving for at this time that's making me feel this emotion? And the great thing about being able to identify that need is that you gain that sense of responsibility to like do something about it. So it's somewhat back in your control, whether that's like something you can do for yourself, or maybe it's something you can ask of that other person. I started to keep track of what I noticed my unmet needs are. And if you see a pattern, it might be a bigger indicator like, oh, maybe I need to make bigger life changes than I realized. And if there's anything you take away from this video, it's figure out what you need and learn to ask for it. So now on to the third part, which is your environment. Check your priorities, see where they're at. I think there's just this notion in society that we need to do it all. And we need to do everything well. Whether that's you need a kick-ass career, you need to get that summer body, or have a thriving social life, be there for your family, have a million side projects and hobbies. And it's just not possible, at least at the same time. I think whenever I'm feeling super burnt out, I think it's because I'm trying to spin all of these plates. But at the end of the day, everything is like pretty lukewarm and I just feel more and more burnt out. All of my energy is being divided into like these 10 things instead of just like really focusing on the 2 or 3 things that are actually really aligned with what I want right now. So let me ask you these 3 questions. The first one is, what are your priorities as of now? And again, this isn't what you think your priorities should be, it's what they actually are, aka what do you spend your time doing? So now that you've got it all down on paper, whether you like to admit it or not. Do these priorities align with your values? And if it doesn't align, that's just a really great moment to be like, oh, I shouldn't be spending so much time on this thing. So the third one is, what are you willing to sacrifice? So now that you have those things and you've kind of eliminated the things that don't really align with your values, actually number them 1 to whatever, on what's highest priority to the lowest. And when I was doing this exercise, this was so hard for me, but you just need to be ruthless about it. Like, just be super honest. And this isn't for anyone else but yourself. And at least for me, when I did that, I felt a lot of mental clarity on these are the things that are actually important to me. These are the things that I should focus my resources and energy on. And the other things I can kind of let them go, or at least just be okay with the fact that it's not at a place where I want it to be. And I think it's natural to change priorities throughout your life, obviously with your life stage, knowing that you just can't have it all at the same time. So the last thing I'll say is, like, what are the things that really lights you up and like just energizes you, and how can you do more of that? Whether it's like, oh, when I hang out with so-and-so, or when I do X or Y activity. And the other thing is like, what are some things that just drain you? And how can you just like minimize, automate, or just like outsource that? So all that to say, I hope any of these tips are helpful for you to get over your burnout and just understand why it even happens. At the end of the day, sometimes you just want to stay in bed all day, watch TV, and eat Taco Bell. And that's totally fine, and give yourself permission to do that. And let me just end with something my therapist always tells me, even though I don't listen, is that it's so important to have self-compassion. It's okay to be a mess sometimes, just plan to get your shit together eventually, is my motto. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.